Armed Services and Homeland Security Committees, and we should point out, Senator, that you're a former CIA analyst. You served 3 tours in Iraq alongside the U.S. military. Then you worked in various national security roles at the Pentagon and in the White House under Presidents Bush and Obama. So theoretically, you would be qualified. What is your take on Bill Pulte serving as acting director of national intelligence?
Well, yeah, and in addition to those things, I actually helped start the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. I was one of the first 10 employees under the Bush administration when John Negroponte became the first DNI, and that legislation here in Congress was passed and established it. I mean, my take is he's not qualified for the job, and we're not even sure he's ever had a security clearance. He certainly never handled classified information, been in any national security role. Which, by the way, is in the legislation. Susan Collins was the one who ensured back in 2004 that whoever got this job had to be someone who had national security experience, But I think the other piece of this is what we've seen him do in the job he does have, right? He's a Senate confirmed housing official. He has used his access to every American's mortgage information to launch bogus claims and lawsuits against many, many people. He has weaponized the government against Donald Trump's perceived enemies. So if we do that and look up people's mortgage information and create fake claims and accusations in a housing department, what could he do at the top of the intelligence community and all the access to information and tools that he has there? So for those reasons, the lack of experience and the lack of judgment and morality and law, I think he's not qualified, and he shouldn't even be there in an acting position.
So we pointed out in a previous segment in the show that he, as housing authority, as you note, launched investigations using this, confidential mortgage information. Or Democratic former Congressman Eric Swalwell, Senator Adam Schiff, Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, a Fed governor that he doesn't like, Lisa Cook, that Trump doesn't like. You know this department, DNI. Theoretically, if he were to weaponize his new office, what would that look like? What does he have access to? Could he order surveillance or get surveillance on, let's say, you?
I mean, look, as someone, who the president tried to criminally indict for a 90-second video, I think you have to start thinking, really expansively about these agencies and departments that I've worked for and with my entire life. One of the central tenets for the intelligence community since Watergate, since before I was born, is that you cannot use the intelligence community against American citizens. You cannot target American citizens. If there's a legal issue, it goes to the FBI, and they do that investigation. But the intelligence community should be focused on foreign threats, terrorism, nation states, et cetera. And I think it's almost unthinkable that we would have people in power who would not, I think, have the judgment to push back if the president asked them to do something illegally. And, the president put out an executive order saying, hey, I think it's time the intelligence community and others start looking at what's going on domestically, domestic terrorism, and using all their tools to go after domestic terrorists. That certainly got my ears up, because what this man defines as domestic terrorist, I think it tends to be often people just expressing freedom of speech. So I think it's just been, we just have to think and keep a creative mind about what someone like Mr. Pulte could do if the president pressed him to do something illegally.
Within the last hour, the acting attorney general, Todd Blanche, told a House committee that the Justice Department is not moving forward with President Trump's $1.776 billion anti-weaponization fund. Here's what he said exactly.
There were a lot of people in this country who had their government weaponized against them. The reasons for the fund, I think, remain as important as they were before, but we are not moving forward with the fund.
We are not moving forward with the fund. There's a lot of wiggle room in the "we are not." What's your reaction?
I mean, my reaction is, first of all, this is what happens when my Republican colleagues actually stand up on behalf of the American people, and they push back against the president and said, we don't want to vote for a slush fund of American taxpayer dollars to go towards violent criminals who had been convicted, right? That sounds like a bad stinker of a political issue. So, Mr. President, please don't do it. So they do have power. And then I think secondly, I don't like, it's nice that they're saying we're not going to do it. They also said the ballroom that the president's building in the East Wing was going to be completely free for taxpayers. They weren't going to pay $1, and now they're asking for $1 billion. So I just don't trust that because Todd Blanche says it today, it won't turn around and happen 3 days from now when Donald Trump changes his mind. So, you know, a bunch of us have put out actually a piece of legislation that just says, no, you cannot use taxpayer dollars to set up your own private fund for just the people you want to get money, especially when those people have done things like tased and attacked police officers and been convicted of doing that.
Democratic Senator Elissa Slotkin from the great state of Michigan. Thanks so much. Coming up, the new support group set up to help people who once worked at the FBI and currently work at the FBI.